Welcome to Passing the Plate, the podcast that's all about food, traditions, and the incredible connections they create. I'm Ashley Covelli, the food writer and recipe developer behind Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen.
And I'm Lisa Lisson, the genealogist and family history expert behind Are You My Cousin? We are your guides on this flavor-packed adventure. We're not just talking about recipes. We're diving into family history, exploring new cultures, and preserving favorite recipes for future generations. In short, we're celebrating the stories and tastes that come with every bite.
So grab a seat at the table and let's head out on a journey of flavor, tradition, and connection. This is Passing the Plate, where every episode is a feast for the senses and a celebration of togetherness. "2024 is coming to an end, and we'd like to celebrate the beginning of a new year by exploring some New Year's traditions from around the world.
While many of us associate New Year's with January 1st, it's important to remember that this isn't universally true. In many cultures, that a new year is celebrated according to different calendars. So historically, the Gregorian calendar, which is what we use today, was not the only one. There was the Julian calendar, for example, which was used for centuries and had, a slightly different New Year's date. So that, along with cultural and religious factors, have led to a diverse range of New Year's celebration around the world.
Right. I know, my family in Iran celebrates Nowruz, which is the Persian New Year, and that happens to be at the beginning of spring. And honestly, to me, that makes more sense because spring, things are starting to grow. There's new life, things are blooming, the sun is out. So that kind of makes more sense to me as what you would consider New Year. And I reached out to my cousin Parnian, and she lives in Iran, has lived there her whole life. She's a recent college student, so I'm so proud of her. That's amazing.
Good for her.
And her English is incredible. So thank goodness for technology. We can video chat, we can email. So I asked her if she could share, because I know those traditions are not necessarily commonly known here in the States. And even to me who, I grew up, I never lived with my dad. He's from Iran. He lives back there now. So just even learning about my own culture through a cousin was kind of interesting. So she gave me some background. We're going to focus a lot on the food traditions, but just for a little bit of context here, she says there's some traditions around everyone will start to buy new clothes for the new year. They start cleaning their houses, and it's a tradition to wear new clothes for the new year and have your life cleaned up. That's a symbolically kind of puts you in a good place. So she says 3 to 2 days before Nowruz, that's New Year in Iran, families will start making a hafsin table, Haftin. So the HAFT part means 7, and sin, sin, is the same sound as the letter S in Persian. So the haftin table is a table that's set for Nowruz. It's since ancient times. She says it's something like a Christmas tree. So the name was chosen because there are 7 things that start with the letter S arranged on the table, and each of those is a symbol of a wish for the new year. So grass or sabzi is a green plant like wheat or barley that stands for life or novelty, life and novelty. Vinegar is for patience. Sumac, which we've talked about in some spice episodes, is for overcoming problems. Senjed, Senjed, stands for love and friendship, and my Googling tells me that that's a dried fruit that's a staple in Persian and Afghan cuisine and culture. It says it's also known as oleander fruit, Russian olive, or silverberry. So again, these are all, things that aren't super familiar to me as somebody who's lived in the U.S. my whole life, but these are very traditional, common things there. Garlic is associated with health and wellness. Apple for kindness. Samano, Samano, is for blessing and fertility. And that online it says that's a sweet paste made from germinated wheat and wheat flour, which is prepared especially for Nowruz in a large pot. It's a practice that's been traced back to the pre-Islamic Sasanian Persian Empire. So those are the traditional items that are on the table. So on the day of Nowruz, families would all gather at the elder's house, mostly the grandparents, and everyone will be wearing their new clothes, and they'll say congratulations to each other for the new year. The older people give money to the children in the family as a gift of the new year, kind of like how Chinese traditions, you give the red envelope of money. And she said, as the days pass, everyone will visit each other's houses. So your uncles, your aunts, even people who live kind of far away in the family. It's just like really an excuse to all get together. And then the night of the 13th is the New Year holiday. So on that night, the holidays will finish and the day is called, and I'm going to spell this because I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. Sizdeh, Sizde, B-E, Dar, D-A-R. And she says that translated basically means letting go of the 13th, which means letting the 13th day of the holiday pass, and everyone should go back to their normal life and routine for the next day. She says that on that day, the last celebration is April 13th, and this day is named as Nature Day in the Iranian calendar. So people will go out in nature for a picnic with their close family members and perform special rituals such as tying plants for a bright future and happiness, or throwing the grass from that little table setup that they did into the water out of entertainment or by believing that there's something behind this ritual. So she said, why throwing the water? This act is considered as a symbol of Zoroastrian civilization and lifestyle against water and nature, cohesion and empathy among the people of the society, as well as the transfer of blessings and happiness to the new year. So I was not expecting her to give me such an detailed rundown, but I really appreciated it. And I kind of like that, you'll see everybody has the same kind of setup, but slightly different in their houses. And then this picnic thing, I love that. Like, what a perfect way to kick off a new year, like with your family, outdoors, in nature. This is just something that I knew a little bit about it, but until I asked her, I didn't really get the whole picture of it. So really interesting and very different than what we do here in the States, like watching fireworks on TV,
Right. Yeah. I like that toward the end where it's a marking. I mean, there's a very intentional marking of, now we begin.
Right.
Get back to your normal now, and moving forward. I think that's a really unique thing. I've seen that in other cultures. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a unique thing, but it's not something we traditionally do so much here in the U.S.
Right.
But talk about fireworks. I do have to ask you, because you don't live that far from New York City. All right. Have you ever done like New Year's in Times Square?
Technically, yes, but no. So my husband, his office is right in the middle of Times Square, and his company does like a New Year's Eve thing every year for TV. And so one year when he had to work from the office, me and one of his coworkers, the coworker's girlfriend, the two of us got together because, hey, they had hotel rooms paid by the company, because you can't even get into Times Square without like government credentials to go in the buildings there on New Year's Eve. So they had like a hotel rooms on the outskirts of Times Square. So the two of us went down there and we would walk around, and anytime we got near loud human sounds, we would turn the other way. And that's the day that I actually, to get away from the crowds, that's the day that I actually found out that there was a Koreatown in New York City in Times Square. And I went to my first Korean barbecue place. So kind of unintentionally got to explore some new to me cultural things by avoiding the mass hysteria that is Times Square on New Year's Eve.
It was probably the best time to tour some or to explore some of those things, because people are focused elsewhere.
Exactly.
Definitely. I love that. Yeah. I do love that.
And kind of going back to traditions of different countries, you spent time in Finland when you were an exchange student. So did you ever hear anything about the Finnish New Year's tradition of interpreting shapes of metal?
I actually had never heard of that, because when I was an exchange student, it was during the summertime. So everything kind of revolved around midsummer and that type of thing. But so I did do a little internet research just because. And it is believed that people are able to predict their future or what's going to happen in the coming year by casting molten tin into a container of water. And then, as it cools down and hardens, it takes on its shape. And then they believe that shape, they can interpret the shape to indicate whether, what's going to happen that year. According to tradition, if the metal hardens in a shape of, say, like a heart or a ring, then that might indicate that there's a wedding going to be in the future. Oh. Or if it's in the shape of, say, like a ship or maybe an airplane, that might predict travel in the coming year. I kind of think of these probably look a little bit like kind of the Rorschach of molten tin.
That's too funny.
That's what I have in my head. I don't know that. But one of the ones I really loved was, if it turns out and you see a shape of a pig, if you can interpret it as a shape of a pig, then you have a year filled with plenty of food.
Oh, that's too funny.
Isn't that funny?
Oh, wow.
So
that's
I thought that was kind of cool.
So you're like almost personal experience with it because you weren't there over New Year's, but that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So again, this is a tradition from a friend that I talked to because I apparently have a very eclectic friend group, which is awesome, especially for things like this where we're trying to help share traditions and bring people together and help everybody connect more with others. So my friend Bambi, who is amazing, Bambi, I love you so much if you hear this. Her family's from the Philippines. She lives out in California now. And I asked her, because I had seen some stuff online about Filipino holidays, but I was like, I want to know, like, not just internet research. I want, like, from an actual reliable source. Do you have any traditions, especially around food? So she said, I know this is common in a couple other places. We eat 13 grapes for each of the upcoming 12 months for good luck. Now, why she wrote 13, I wonder if she actually meant 12, but she wrote 13. Either way, a grape for every month, and then maybe a bonus like a baker's dozen. She said, the food we serve must be round, symbolizing prosperity for the new year. So kind of like your ring, when you're interpreting the ring, so roundness. She says, we also wear polka dots for good luck. We do not eat chicken because chickens scratch the ground and peck for food, which symbolizes hard work and a struggle to earn a living.
Interesting.
Right. And then at the stroke of midnight, every family member must be together. The belief is that whatever you do at midnight and throughout January 1st sets the tone for the entire year. And she said, just like as a side note, she does not spend money on New Year's Day. So that's kind of like, because you're kind of trying to set the tone, I guess, for the year. Yeah.
I actually really like that. And I think that, to me, that's almost when you think of, in terms of, say, like mindfulness, there is a very intentional, and there's an intentionality about how you think about the day and how you go. And I mean, I think that's the beauty of traditions in general. But I see that, I think, more maybe outside of some of the, U.S. customs, that like the firework kind of thing. I love this idea of, being very intentional about kind of what you're going to do.
Right. Setting the tone with what you want to be surrounded by and with. Yeah. And just for like reference, I asked her which of her, like, at what point did her family leave the Philippines and come to the States? And she said the first one was her great grandpa. And so she wasn't born in the Philippines, but this just to but those traditions still are around for her, which I thought was great. And I love it. It's just, and even if you aren't, Filipino or Persian or any of the Finnish, any of these other cultures, like, I think it could be fun to adopt some of these types of traditions for your own family or,
Oh, I think so too.
I would watch it if you melt metal, Be
careful.
Be careful. Make sure you have a blacksmith with you.
I know the logistics of that whole thing with the melting of the tin kind of got me, or confused me, but that's, I totally am behind doing it at some point.
Are you stuck in a cooking rut? Let's spice things up. If you're tired of cooking the same things over and over again and feel like things have gotten a little bit stale in the kitchen, I have the perfect resource for you. Let me help spark some creativity in your kitchen with Spice Up Your Life, a free guide that I've created that's packed with over 25 ideas for you to try out. Turn to this Choose Your Own Adventure style guide whenever you're looking to add a little excitement to mealtime. To download your copy of Spice Up Your Life, head to bigflavors.co/spice.
Well, it's interesting. So your friend does the Filipino culture. They don't eat the chicken. Now in Denmark, here's another Scandinavian tradition. Pork will often be eaten on New Year's Day because pigs are associated with prosperity. Again, we saw that with the Finnish tradition as well. And then another source says that there's a tradition of smashing plates and jumping off of chairs.
Oh, that's funny.
This just sounds like fun.
Sounds like a party. An expensive party, maybe.
That it's customary for residents of Denmark to celebrate the new year by throwing old plates and glasses against doors of the family and friends to banish the bad spirits. Sounds a little dangerous, quite frankly. I actually kind of wonder, does this actually still happen? I'd be curious to know. And then they also will collectively stand on chairs and jump off of them at midnight to leap into January. So they're leaping into January, hoping for for good luck.
Oh, that's fun. I feel like there's a lot involved. I feel like my whatever traditions I have, which aren't really much, pale in comparison to some of these things.
Oh, mine do. I mean, I'm lucky if I make it up late enough to see the new year come in. I mean, I have to. Usually, I'm asleep, quite frankly. And now I'm feeling kind of like maybe I've been left out. Maybe I need to be more intentional. Okay. In my defense, guys, I get up crazy early in the morning. I am a morning person. So by the time midnight rolls around, honey, I've been in bed for hours.
Yes, I'm a night owl, so staying up to midnight is not anything crazy for me.
I don't do it intentionally, put it that
way. So jumping over to my Italian in-laws, I asked my husband, he said there's something about throwing dishes out the window, but that's about as far as he had heard. So I did some research and I did ask a couple friends. My friend Angela says lentil soup in Italy, the lentils represent coins, so it brings lots of money into the new year. And it's funny because she's in finance, so that's just kind of funny that maybe that's why.
Maybe she ate the lentils.
She said a non-food one is wearing red underwear when crossing from the old year into the new. She said it might be some sort of ploy from BU, big underwear, but it can't hurt. Oh. I just thought that was funny.
So I actually do think that's that I had seen that as well on the internet, but I had also, there's another culture, I'm not sure if we talked about it, but red being good luck.
Like
and I
Chinese
know in the Asian cultures, it can be good luck and prosperity. And so actually, I don't think that's that out of line.
You can just imagine that people may be wearing red on New Year's Eve, in other Italian things, it said, aside from them symboling coins, legumes symbolize longevity because they're long lasting. And then they also have the kind of when midnight strikes, eat 12 grapes or 12 raisins, one for each month of the new year to bring you luck. And this says, if you're accompanied by your partner, share the pomegranate on the night of San Silvestro because this fruit symbolizes loyalty and fertility. So in my internet research, it says the custom remains in different parts of Italy, including large cities like Naples and Rome. At midnight, some Italians throw out the window old things, usually crockery, so dishes, cooking items. This ritual symbolizes letting go of what is useless and getting rid of evil, physical and moral, accumulated during the year to make room for a fresh start.
That's so cool, because again, it's that intentionality of starting the new year.
But who cleans it up?
I don't know. My thought was, I don't want to be walking down the sidewalk at midnight because she could get hit with
Italian tourists beware.
I'm like, you can get hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that's so interesting, Ashley. And but back here in the United States, many people actually, we have some traditional New Year's Eve dinner and foods that we eat. Often you're going to see foods like ham, turkey, and roast beef here that are going to be eaten on New Year's Eve. But in the South, in the Southern culture, they are actually on New Year's Day, we're supposed to eat black-eyed peas and collard greens for good luck, or it's also called hopping john and this is all around good luck. Now, this might explain why I might not always have good luck, because I do not like either one of those at all. Not even close. But again, this is actually something, but black-eyed peas and collard greens, are in abundance here in the South. They're easily produced, easily had. So lots of people do and grew up on those. I know that my grandmother would make these, not just New Year's Eve. In fact, I never had a New Year's Eve with my grandmother. But, this would be routine, like a Sunday dinner type food. So, but again, specifically on New Year's Day, it's supposed to symbolize and bring good luck.
I wonder if you said those items are abundant in your area. So I wonder if that's what it is. It's abundance. I wonder if that might be the connection there.
Actually, I think you might be right. And I think we see kind of some of that coming on with some of the European countries with eating the 12 grapes. And obviously, those are areas that produce a lot of grapes and things. So I could definitely see that.
Yeah. Moving over into something I feel like is very underrepresented in a country where it's kind of the start of the country. Native American culture is something that I would love to learn more about. My friend Stephanie married into an Oneida family, and so she posts some really interesting things. We're, still friends on Facebook. She lives out in Wisconsin still, and I'm out here in New York. But it's been so cool to keep up with her traditions. So I figured, hey, I might as well ask, like, are there any Oneida traditions around New Year's, especially, again, around food? And she said, yes, Hoyan donuts, Hoyan. She says, we make donuts and people in the community come by and yell Hoyan. It means and another year. So it's kind of like a trick or treat. She said some come and stay for hot cocoa and coffee. Some just come through. And she sent me some pictures. So I got to see, they kind of look like, like traditional, like old fashioned donuts with, the either sugar, like coated in sugar or just plain. She's got some really great pictures of her kids making them. She's got some beautiful children, and they do it every year. So I thought that was a fun, like, donuts on New Year's, like, yeah.
So is there any significance in the shape? Donuts because they're round and continuity.
You know what?
And moving forward, because I think we've talked about that, in other episodes, but the shape of, the 10 in Scandinavia, the shape of foods, the Filipino culture about things being round. And I'm wondering if that's potentially another, another example of shape being intentional.
That's a great question. And I'm not sure. The internet research tells me that the tradition has been celebrated since the mid 1800s, and that it was possibly influenced by the Dutch, who also have a donut related tradition for ringing in the new year.
Oh,
so very well could be. But I thought that was so interesting, and definitely one I hadn't heard of before.
Yeah, definitely. I hadn't heard that either, obviously. So I like the one in Greece. They have a popular New Year's tradition that involves hanging onions from the ceiling. Don't you love how so many of these revolve around food?
I love it.
And so it's believed that the hanging of the onions from the ceiling brings good health, prosperity, and fertility for the new year. I just love that. I don't know what it was about that one. One just really, I just like that one.
I can smell it. I love onions, so.
I do too. Onions, garlic, whatever.
So you had mentioned black-eyed peas and collard greens. I have another friend from the South. I think she's in Texas, and she said black-eyed peas in the South and cabbage for money. So I thought that was interesting. I wonder if that's the collard greens that you were talking about, if that symbolizes money because of the green.
Oh, actually, that might be a good point. That because they're green, yeah.
Yeah. So I had a lot of friends chimed in with just kind of regional things. I got from my friend Helene. She said she was asking if I was also talking about non-January 1st New Year's Eve. And I said, absolutely, because like we talked about Nowruz. She said, in that case, apples and honey for Rosh Hashanah is for a sweet year. And then Leslie chimed in with, and honey cake or apple cake for dessert for the same reason. And she said, also, many families incorporate carrots into their dinner, sliced crosswise into coins for a prosperous year. They can be prepared however it suits, but they should always be cut into rounds. So we're really seeing across the world in different traditions, there's something with roundness, prosperity, money, abundance, and just, I think that's really interesting.
I'm wearing polka dots for January 1st.
I'm wearing polka dots right now. That's too funny.
Yes, you are.
I should wear this.
But I think, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna eat some lentils,
red underwear.
Red, and I'm gonna make donuts. We're just gonna do circles all day on January 1st.
Leslie also added pomegranates. She said, how could I forget the ubiquitous pomegranate? There are several associations for pomegranate, one being that there's supposed to be 613 seeds in a pomegranate, and that connects to the 613 mitzvot that the Torah describes. She said another is that the seeds are as bountiful as the number of blessings wished for the new year. Which is,
I love that.
Isn't that lovely? She said, and during the holiday, we eat round challahs instead of the traditional braided ones to symbolize the circle of life, the cycle of the year, and that dates and nuts are also traditional foods. But we're just really seeing this kind of circular connection.
That is so cool. I when we first talked about doing this particular episode, that I never thought that we would actually see that kind of theme come up. It wasn't on our radar at all.
And to be totally transparent, when we were first talking about this episode, we were talking about just doing the things that we found through our internet research. But then I realized I just know a lot of people from different backgrounds. So it never hurts to ask people. And you might learn some interesting things about your friends and family members that you didn't know before. And being curious about people's lives, I think, is just important, especially when it comes to food. It's a really great way to bring people together.
It does. It absolutely does. And I've had so much fun learning about all of these different types of traditions that are out there. So, Ashley, I actually really enjoy this one from Mexico, this tradition. It's called Posada, and it's a 9-night tradition. So I thought this was pretty cool, actually. And it involves eating tamales and drinking, I think it's a tole, is how they say it, Atole. But tamales, so that's corn dough that's stuffed with meat, cheese, other wonderful, delicious additions. Wrap it in a banana leaf or a corn husk. And this is what's going to make appearances at, well, pretty much every special occasion in Mexico. So not just New Year's Day, but the holiday season is especially favored time for food. In the Mexican culture, groups of women will gather together in the family. They make hundreds of those little packets of tamales, and each person's in charge of one aspect of the cooking process. So this could take, I can imagine the amount of time and work it would take to do this. And then they hand them out to friends, families, and neighbors. And then on New Year's, they serve it with what's called menudo, a tripe and hominy soup that is famously, apparently good for hangovers. So New Year's Eve, so it's kind of telling me that maybe New Year's Eve is, a nice party time. And then we have the recovery time on January 1st. But I did love the tradition of the posada, which is the whole 9-night tradition. Around this time of year, they have, the women together. Almost reminds me a little bit of like a quilting circle, quilting bees. Although this is certainly much shorter time span, but it's women getting together. They're doing a lot of work, obviously, but that they're having fun together as well.
Yeah.
So, and grounding it's going to be multi-generational probably. So they're grounding the younger generations within the tradition of the family as well as, the family itself.
Right. And so this was the second culture that we've seen that does a multi-day celebration for New Year's. So that and the Persian celebrations are both the multi-day kind of thing. One last one that I think would be a fun one to end on that we came across online for Estonia. It's just called eating lots. And so it says, traditionally on New Year's Day, Estonians try to eat 7, 9, or 12 times throughout the day, as these are all lucky numbers. It is believed that the more they eat, the more plentiful food will be in the coming year. So they might need a New Year's Day, like, digestive aid or something.
On January 2nd, yeah definitely. I think I could get behind that, though.
For science. For science.
So we'll have. So for science, I've got a lot to do on January 1st, 2025. Then apparently for science.
It's a good thing we've got this planned out ahead of time.
That's right. Find the show notes for this episode at passingtheplate.org/50. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Passing the Plate. We hope you enjoyed our journey into the world of food, traditions, and the amazing connections they create.
As always, it's been a pleasure sharing these delicious stories with you. Remember, food is more than just sustenance. It's a way to connect the dots between our past, present, and future.
And until next time, happy eating, happy connecting, and pass the plate. Head to passingtheplate.org/podcast for show notes.